Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss the extent to which Boris Johnson is important to the continued success of the extreme Tory Brexit that we are suffering from, and if he is, as some people think, actually essential. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So Brexit is destroying our country, and in several ways. And one way is in our political discourse. 2020 was a complete disaster as Boris Johnson's government failed to take the pandemic seriously at any stage, and after a 2021 of, if anything, an even worse approach. We have the worst figures in Europe. In fact, if you compare our figures with the 5 worst EU performers of France, Germany, Spain, Italy and Poland, that's in raw numbers, not per capita terms. They may not be the 5 worst in per capita. But in terms of raw numbers, what you have are 5 countries who collectively have 440% of our population, but only 186% of the number of daily deaths and only 50% of the number of cases. 4.5 times our population, only half the number of cases per day. We're not just the worst in Europe. We are way out in front of the pack in terms of complete failure to control the virus. That's why I had to lump 5 countries together just to compare. It's not possible to compare the UK with any country in Europe. There is no comparison. You have to lump multiple European countries together to have any comparison. And although Johnson and the Conservatives did suffer in the polls last year, they got through it. People kept letting them get away with it. You know, thinking, oh yeah, all very tricky, all very new. They were trying their best and they've come good now. In 2021, alongside continued COVID failures, we also had the failures of Brexit. In fact, Brexit has now failed so badly that even its own architects are disowning it. Nobody wants to take credit for the Brexit deal anymore. You know, with those not immediately in government not even wanting to take ownership of Brexit. Let me put very simply where we are with Brexit right now. Nobody in the public sphere is willing to put their hand up and say that this is what they wanted. Nobody is saying, yeah, this is exactly what we thought would happen. Not a single soul in this land is willing to say that this is what they're happy with. So if the people who argued for this aren't happy with it, in fact, they're the most furious about it, you would think, why the hell did we do it then? It's bad enough to have a society force upon you changes you don't like. This happens in a society. That's just the way it is. You can't please everyone. But we had a change forced onto us that nobody wanted. Not even the most zealous of Brexiteers are defending what we have now. Sure, they're blaming others for it, but the point is they don't want it. And yet Boris Johnson is still in place. He's not popular in the country, though his party maintains stubbornly consistent support. Not high enough to win a general election, which is something they seem to want quite desperately. But before Brexit unravels even more next year, at any rate, they do want one. But it's still higher than it should be. Basically, Boris Johnson can't govern. He can campaign. That's why he's Prime Minister. He's good at campaigning. He's good at getting people to vote against their own interests and blame his mess on others. But he can't actually manage the simple act of governance. Even the Tory MPs, who are delighted at his electoral success, are not happy about the fact he isn't actually doing anything. They constantly chunter about his incompetence to get even the simplest things done. Some of them still wanted the UK to be around in a few years' time. They wanted Brexit, but they wanted the UK to exist. This may need to be crossed off their wish list if something doesn't change. But what it's clear won't change is Boris Johnson governing. He keeps going on holiday during crises. He can't be bothered to read his briefs. He has never followed through on a project in his life. The nearest he's ever come is leaving the EU. Okay, we've done that. But then he just put his feet up. What has he done since to prepare our post-Brexit future? Nothing at all. He's even thinking of starting a trade war with the EU, with whom we are completely dependent upon imports, because it might be less effort than actually implementing Brexit in a way that doesn't get him instantly fired. You know, there's a speech doing the rounds this week. A Labour peer, David Putnam, resigned from the House of Lords in a memorial speech that he gave on Friday, same day when, as he noted himself, memorial speeches carried extra poignance. He expressed his distress at the way British politics was conducting itself under Boris Johnson. He regarded the government's way of engaging as a dialogue of the deaf, as they never listened to any points of view. We are the government, take it or leave it, he said. He described how, as a younger man, he had spoken with Albert Speer and learned of what he called the fascist playbook. I'll link the full speech for you to read yourself, but needless to say, he sees much of the fascist playbook in use by our current government. I think we all do. We know what has happened when it has been allowed to play out in other countries in the past. But in one part of his speech, he implored what he called decent Conservative peers and MPs who have a concern for parliamentary democracy to do what they must eventually do: tell Boris Johnson to just go, along with his cabinet. However, they're not doing so. I've said before that I do not believe they will do unless Johnson loses his election-winning powers. In time, this might happen. I thought it would happen this year. It hasn't. I do not know what will eventually end him. I don't know if this winter his chickens will come home to roost. For all I know, he will ride out this storm as well. He has successfully polarised politics. On his side are all those who will forgive any harm as being someone else's fault, and something that would be much worse if he weren't in charge. Even his supporters, who know that he's messing up, have been allowed themselves to think it would be worse with someone else in charge. On the other side, though, it's very polarised, on the other side, there is nobody. There's no leader of those opposed to Johnson. There are people who think Starmer should have adopted that role, maybe, but in doing so, he would be attempting to act as a polarising figure himself. As much about attacking whole sections of the public as he would be about bringing others to his banner. Let's be honest, even if he found the prospect palatable, and I don't think he would, are we really suggesting that Keir Starmer, or indeed anyone in Labour, could play Johnson at his own game and beat him? The tribalism in the country feeds Johnson. Nobody else seems to be able to harness it as he does. And this is another issue when it comes to predicting his downfall. See, last year I thought that Johnson would have fulfilled his purpose once we'd left the single market. Johnson was installed to get us out of the EU and prevent the Conservative Party splitting over the issue. That was it. That was his one job. He has few allies and even fewer friends in the party. He has only those who wish to use him to get Brexit done. Well, what more is there for him to do on the Brexit front? Thanks to the way things have gone, we are now engaged in endless battles of rhetoric with the EU. If we had to leave the EU because it was this terrible thing, how come they're complaining even more bitterly about it than when we left? But the thing is that Johnson is still in place. He's not governing. He probably can't govern. The Conservatives have their Brexit. It will now drag on for as long as they can make it drag on. It must be clear to even the dimmest Tory MP that the process has crashed and burned. That's why none of them are saying, oh yeah, this is nice. The only path for them is to constantly distract from the damage it is doing. But none of the damage is being dealt with. Johnson has not moved us even a single step towards a stable future outside the EU. So why is he still in place? The conclusion has to be that he is essential to their project still. Only this time there's no goal for him. Before, his job was to take us out of the EU. There was a definite goal there. We need to not be a member of the EU. He did that. Then it was to finalise negotiation with the EU, convince people we've got to deal with them. Take us out of the single market. Well, he's done that too. What's his job now? What is his goal? It seems to me to be to play for time. Keep everyone occupied while we sort something out or wait for a miracle. Like that episode of Fawlty Towers with Gourmet Night. There's no goal other than to waste time now until they dare trigger a general election and retain some sort of working majority. You know, is that his last job? Win another election and give them time to solidify Brexit to the point where no other government could reverse it in the time they'd have before the Conservatives inevitably return to power again. Because the thing is, if, as some suggest, Boris Johnson is essential to Brexit now, then he'll be even harder to shift. The problem has always been that the Conservatives don't have anyone who could appeal to the voters in the way that Johnson does. See, they have options for potentially serious statesmen who could probably govern well enough. You know, Michael Gove, Rishi Sunak are both capable of achieving things. But the Conservatives have painted themselves into a bit of a corner. They've been upsetting traditional supporters in favour of pushing a populist rhetoric onto those who would not traditionally vote Tory. Basically, the situation is this. If the Conservatives replace Johnson for someone like Gove or Sunak, they might lose droves of support amongst those working class people who think that Johnson's one of them. Because Gove and Sunak might not be able to play that trick. However, it won't be the case that they'll just be able to easily pick back up their traditional middle class support either, because they've been appalled by their actions of late. And is this where we are now? They're stuck with Johnson until they can either steer themselves to a place where they can afford to drop him, or that he no longer appeals to those masses. Will that happen? When will that happen? Are they now tied to him, and the only way actually to get rid of him is either a catastrophic failure of his appeal? But for that to happen, people really have to start paying attention. I cannot imagine a catastrophe greater than the one that's affecting us right now. And he's still getting away with it. He went on holiday for the 4th time last week. And, you know, people were polling, members of the public, oh, he deserves it after 2 years of hard work. Do you mean 2 years? He hadn't done any hard work. But even if you thought he had, it's not like his first holiday in 2 years. He goes on them all the time, in the middle of crises. You know, is a general election and tactical voting the only way to deal with him? That may be it now. In which case he'll be in place for a while yet. But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. If you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.